What's up everyone, you're watching Aussie Talks Wrestling and welcome to the first ever episode of This Week in WWE, What Mattered. This is my brand new video series where I discuss the major plot lines, storylines and things that are just going on generally in WWE during the past week. And this is coming from the perspective of somebody that watches Monday Night Raw, Friday Night SmackDown and every main roster PLE. I'm not going to be doing an in-depth analysis of every single show, so I'm not going to be going through these shows segment by segment or match by match. I'm merely going to be discussing what I feel are the biggest things that have happened in the world of WWE in the past week and offering some of my analysis and opinions. So whether you're a casual WWE fan or pro wrestling fan, a lapsed fan that used to watch the product, or maybe you just work too much and have other life commitments and don't really have the time to watch weekly WWE television, then this is the series for you. Just before we get started, I am filming this video just before I go to work, hence the nice dress shirt. Please do not get used to me dressing this formally in my videos going forward, because that will not be the case. Starting with SmackDown, which was live in Berlin this past week, and we have a brand new Undisputed WWE Champion in Drew McIntyre. He defeated Cody Rhodes in a 3 stages of hell match. Drew sneakily won the straight wrestling match with a low blow behind the referee's back to get the first win over Cody. Cody then tied things up at 1-1 by winning the Falls Count Anywhere match, which was probably my favourite of the 3 matches overall. Then finally Drew won the title in a steel cage match after an indirect assist from Jacob Fatu. Personally, I'm so happy that Drew McIntyre has won the world title. He is British, so I can claim him as one of mine because he's Scottish. Even though I'm English, we can claim him as British. He's British if he wins and Scottish if he loses, just like Andy Murray. But yeah, I'm so happy for him that he's finally won this title. He was such a backbone of the WWE during COVID. You know, when I think of the pandemic era, I think of Drew McIntyre as a WWE champion. He obviously won that title twice during that period. I think of his great feud with Randy Orton, which included a Hell in a Cell match. It included an ambulance match. Like, really good times considering the really difficult period that we were all living in. And ever since then, Drew has been doing some of the best work of his career, but unfortunately just hasn't had a world title reign to show for it. He won the World Heavyweight Championship at WrestleMania 40, but was ultimately cashed in on after like 5 minutes by Damian Priest, which I don't have any issue with, right? It was a great cash-in, a great moment. It furthered the story between McIntyre and Punk at the time, so it served its purpose. But it was starting to get quite frustrating because it was at the point where McIntyre seemed to be getting inserted into world title feuds and just never winning the big one, so it was really starting to damage his credibility. His heel work recently has been absolutely fantastic. Him rage-baiting Cody all the way up to this match has been really good entertainment. He plays the character so well. Like most of his character work, right? Drew is genuinely severely underrated, I still think. I know a lot of people think highly of him, but he's an absolute great promo, great character worker, brilliant in the ring. The dude's huge and intimidating. This guy has the DNA of a WWE champion. I've got absolutely nothing against Cody either. I really like Cody. I don't need to go into detail about that. The kids love him. He's a great worker. He's a great promo. Great story. Love Cody. But I really do think it was the time to put the strap on Drew McIntyre, so I'm very happy for Drew. But I also think that Cody's most recent title reign was quite stale, so I hope they can go off and do something different with Cody. Moving on to Monday Night Raw, which was live in Dusseldorf, I thought this crowd was really hot, significantly better than what I thought was a bit of a below-par crowd in Berlin for SmackDown, to be totally honest. Lots of good stuff happened on this show. As I said, I'm not going to go through it segment by segment, but to start off with, we have set up a World Heavyweight Championship match for next week in Belfast, Ireland, with CM Punk defending against Finn Balor. Finn just walked out to Punk and called his shot after what was a bit of a pep talk from Liv Morgan backstage, where Liv was basically accusing him of waiting around and waiting for things to happen instead of going out and seizing the moment. So that's exactly what he did, and Finn will now get a world title shot in front of his home crowd next week. Whilst I'm sure it's going to be a great match, I have absolutely zero faith that Finn is going to win the title. And I don't think he should at this stage anyway, but Finn is kind of like how I was talking about Drew previously, but like way worse, like way, way worse. Finn Balor's a great worker. I don't need to sit here and sell Finn Balor to you guys, but I don't think Finn's ever going to win a world title in WWE again. Speaking of Raw in Belfast next week, Becky Lynch is going to be defending her Women's Intercontinental Championship against Maxine Dupree after she just won it back recently. I don't really have a problem with this as long as it's going to be their last match. I've quite enjoyed the feud. Maxine has definitely improved a lot, particularly her promo work, I think. Her in-ring has obviously improved. Long way to go still, but I'm glad that they gave her the title for a short period of time. I'm glad they've put her in a program with someone as high profile as Becky Lynch. The crowd are going to be white hot for Becky in Belfast, so we'll get that match out of the way. Then we can really start building towards WrestleMania, where I presume Becky is going to be defending that Intercontinental title against AJ Lee. Liv Morgan and Roxanne Perez of the Judgment Day are the new #1 contenders for the WWE Women's Tag Team Championships after winning a triple threat match against Bayley and Lyra Valkyria and the Kabuki Warriors, and they'll get their title shot at Saturday night's main event coming up in a couple of weeks. I'm not going to harp on about this for too long, but I have to say the women's tag team division at the moment is the most stacked it has ever been. There's been problems with that division for a long time. A lot of times where single stars are just thrown together to make a tag team and then win the titles, which is no surprise for WWE. They've done that formula a lot for the men's tag titles as well. But there's been a distinct lack of women's tag teams, or at the moment there are absolutely loads, and the division is so healthy. Now let's talk about Bron Breakker, who interrupted a tag team match between Austin Theory of Bronson Reed of The Vision against Penta and Dragon Lee, and he was not in a good mood. He wreaked havoc at ringside before Adam Pearce and security had to come out, and he eventually throttled Adam Pearce up against the corner of the ring, right up against the turnbuckle, and he was so intense you could just see the anger in this man's eyes. And I think it's a really good opportunity now for Bron to really go off the deep end following his defeat for the world title against CM Punk last week. And probably the most interesting thing about this is Adam Pearce was going absolutely crazy at Bron Breakker for the destruction that he's causing and all the grief that he's basically causing him as a general manager. And there was a backstage segment shortly after this where Paul Heyman was talking to him, and Adam Pearce was obviously having a go at Paul Heyman, saying you need to keep Bron in check. And Paul Heyman said something really intriguing, actually. He turned around to Adam Pearce and said, "You put your hands on him first," which is actually true. Bron was causing chaos, don't get me wrong. It was actually Adam Pearce that put his hands on Bron Breakker first. So I'm really interested to see how this develops. And finally, the main event of the show was Gunther defeating AJ Styles in their first time ever match. This was a really decent match. It was always going to be with two great workers like Gunther and AJ Styles. But ultimately, AJ had Gunther in the calf crusher, and Gunther actually did tap out, but he tapped out with his left hand, which was not visible to the referee. Referee didn't see it. AJ was questioning the ref. Gunther was able to get in a low blow and win the match, so won in nefarious circumstances, which is just going to continue to pile the heat on Gunther. Now, I'm not saying he's been booked perfectly, but I do think Gunther is getting way too much grief on the IWC. I think he's a great worker. I personally think it was a good thing that he beat John Cena in his last match, and even making him tap out. Now, would I have said that before the match? Probably not, necessarily, being totally honest. I'm a massive John Cena fan. I was very lucky and fortunate enough to actually be there in attendance at Saturday night's main event in Washington, DC. And the crowd reaction wasn't great, as you all know, but I do think it was a poetic ending after seeing that little smile from Cena just before he tapped out. I really liked it. I'm very curious as to what they do with Gunther going forward in the immediate future. I don't feel like you can put him in the Royal Rumble or the Elimination Chamber unless he's going to win either of those matches, but I don't think it's really time for him to be in a world title program right now. I wouldn't necessarily be against it, but I just think there's some more interesting stories that we can tell going into WrestleMania. We know that AJ Styles is retiring in 2026, and there's been a lot of rumours that Brock Lesnar is also going to retire, probably at SummerSlam in his home state. So it may well be that Gunther goes on a tear. He might retire one of them. Hell, he might even retire both of them. Thank you guys for taking the time for watching my first ever episode of This Week in WWE What Mattered. I am going to be posting these every Friday, and like I said at the beginning, it's really going to be a high-level Cliff Note sort of update of what's happened in the world of WWE in the past week. So if that's something you're interested in, please subscribe and look out for my video next week, where I promise I'll be wearing a wrestling t-shirt and not this. Thank you guys. See you later.